It's a wonderful month. Not only is it Registered Dietitian Day, it's also National Nutrition Month. So you guys have 4 fabulous registered dietitians all ready to go. And in honor of all of the days that are celebrating our dietitian team, we get to cook with them today. So very excited about that. Hi there, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome.
Yeah. Welcome. That's good.
Hopefully
Well,
everybody's enjoying some beautiful weather.
And Aubrey, I was going to say, at least we know we have the East and the West Coast covered today with Sue
There
being
we do.
in Pacific time.
Yes, we do. I am out here in California. We have a conference, Society for Gynecological Oncology conference, which Erin is joining me tomorrow. And yeah, so I'm here a little bit early and happy to be joining from sunny California. Yeah. So everyone, I am sure you are all familiar with Zoom by now. So if you would like, please just put in that chat. Let us know where you are from. We do love that you utilize the chat and we get a chance to sort of share all of that. We're across the United States now, so we get the chance to share where everybody's calling in from. And then, of course, all of you are joining us from all different places around the US, but this is our dietitian team that you get to see here front and center. I can go from left to right as people are still coming in, but we have Aubrey, if she wants to give a little shout out there. We have Aubrey Red, and then we have Catherine Romano. She's coming in from Florida, so we're getting a lot of the coast covered, right? And we have Erin Pellegrin and then Michelle DiCristofaro. So we have our whole entire team here ready to give you some incredible ways of demoing 4 delicious ways to cook vegetables and greens so you can try them in your own kitchen. I love it. Yeah.
Like we have a lot
Always
of places
remember to
in the chat.
Yeah. Please remember, you can raise your hand, you can unmute, you can put your question in the chat. I'm going to be your sous chef. I like to joke, our sous chef for the day, but I'm really I'm monitoring, just making sure that everybody is getting what they need and all the questions are right here coming to our dietitian team. So it really is amazing that we get a chance to have 4, not just 1, 2, or 3, 4 that are ready to answer all of our questions. I see Amy from Massachusetts, so that's all good. Perfect. And then for all of you, I also want to take a chance to thank our sponsors, our education sponsors. We cannot do what we do without them. It is really our honor to host this for our community, but it's resources that we need. So we give a big shout out for our presenting sponsors, which are West and Merck, Daiichi Sankyo with support from GSK and Lilly. So thank you to them for just being so supportive of all the work that we do here at Unite for Her. Couple little reminders. I think I'll go through those next. So we have our Her Speaker Series coming up March the 21st. If you want to mark your calendars, please start doing that. It's at 5 p.m. We will be joined by Dr. Santos Rayo. He's the president of Society for Integrative Oncology and medical director of the Integrative Oncology of UH Connor Whole Health. They are one of our newest partners at Unite for Her. Clearly, we align so beautifully, and he'll be presenting on integrative oncology and personal cancer care. So please feel free to sign up. I will put that web address in the chat, but of course, you may know this by now. It's uniteforher.org/her speaker series. And then the other thing we have coming up, which is towards the end of March, it's March the 28th. It is our Ask the Experts at 1 p.m. And you're going to join this magnificent culinary RD team again for a rapid fire nutrition segment. They'll be answering as many of your nutrition and food questions as possible. So of course you can submit those questions too ahead of time, but you can also do it right in there if you join. And you can do that at uniteforher.org/ask. Very easy. Yeah. It's a good month for nutrition. I love it. I think our community loves the dietitian team. Out of all of the Ask the Experts or the speaker series, it's just so easy for us to be able to implement a lot of the things that you teach us, and that just empowers our community so much. So I'm so glad that we're joined with all of you today. How is everybody doing? Good.
Doing great.
Do you like all their t-shirts? I'm loving all your t-shirts. Look so good.
I wear this. I love this shirt. I wear this so often outside of workspace. I feel like this is on constant rotation.
Very cute. All right. Well, Aubrey, I am actually going to put you front and center. I'm going to let you talk a little bit about National Nutrition Month and sort of set us up for the day.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, thanks everybody for hopping on today also. We're very excited to have you for our Cooking Methods 101 virtual hangout, which this is actually not the first Cooking Methods 101 hangout we've done. We did have one back in January for Plantuary. So definitely go on to our Her Library and watch them if you haven't already. I have heard we're getting a revamp of the library, so it might look a little bit different very soon. A lot of great resources on the library as well. But today we're bringing to you this Cooking Methods 101 because it is National Nutrition Month. Today, like Sue said specifically, is Registered Dietitian Day. So all of us are going to show you in our kitchen just a little bit about how we like to utilize some different plant foods, particularly in the realm of veggies. So what we did is we went on our social media and asked you all what you wanted to see, and we got the most votes for veggies. And so today we're going to show you 4 different ways to utilize dark leafy greens, particularly versions of kale and versions of chard. And so you might see with the chard, it may look a little bit different than a dark leafy green, but we know that these are really nutritious, and sometimes we don't always enjoy them or know how to prep them. That's why we have our virtual hangout today, but we have all of our other National Nutrition Month content coming to you. We had another virtual hangout last week with Manna, which is a local Philadelphia area nonprofit. We have, like Sue said, our Ask the Experts, but we also have lots of content on our social media coming out. The theme is Beyond the Table. And so we're trying to help you stretch things in your pantry, learn new things about how to utilize different foods. And that's where Cooking Methods 101 comes to play. So I'm actually not going to start first. We are going to go over to Michelle, who is going to start us off with our first recipe. So Sue, if you want to just replace me and put in Michelle.
Got it. All right. Hi there, Michelle. How are you?
Hi. So glad to be here. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Aubrey. I am kicking this off. I'll do a little bit of prep work, get the recipe started, and then I'll pass it off. And then we'll come back to me because my recipe has to cook a little bit. So I feel like we're not completely out of the woods yet for the cold weather. I know I shouldn't say that. It's a beautiful day, but I love warm weather. But in case there's some cold weather coming up, I'm making a soup. So lentil soup with chard. So this is chard, and this is actually a red leaf chard. So there is Swiss chard, which has a white stem. There's another type of chard that has more of a yellowish orange stem. This red chard, or you could see in the store rainbow chard where they just package it all together. So you could use either type or any of the 3 types for this recipe. It does not matter. My local grocery store typically has the red chard, so that's why I chose that. So if you've never worked with chard before, look how beautiful this leaf is. Always have these really large leaves. I do like the red chard because of the beautiful ruby color, and the little veins in the leaves are red. So a lot of good nutrition goes into chard. So vitamin A, which is good for vision. Vitamin C is an antioxidant, and vitamin K, which is good for blood clotting and our bone health, and magnesium, which is good for blood pressure regulation. So in addition to all those wonderful nutrients, it also tastes good. So you might think, I don't know, those leaves look kind of coarse. and they are, but I'm going to show you how to make them more palatable. So behind me, I have my saute pan heating on medium-high heat. I'm going to start sauteing some onions. So I have a white onion here. Just give it a dice, or you can do a chop, whatever works best for you. White onion, cooking onion, Vidalia onion, red onion, whatever you have on hand will work for this recipe. The recipe calls for 1 medium onion. I had a really large onion, so I'm just using half of that. Add some olive oil, give it a good swirl. I saw a question come through, Sue. Did I miss that?
Yeah, no, it's Caroline. So Caroline, you can just unmute yourself, but Amy was saying no tears, no tears. How is that possible? No tears. Go ahead, Caroline.
I bet Caroline was asking about Bella. Was that
What
right?
was she asking about?
About Bella?
Oh, no, let me see, Caroline. Let me see if I can unmute you. And
Caroline wanted wanted to see Bella. She might, usually when I'm chopping, she does come over.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
So what I'm doing is I'm just sauteing the onions just for a couple minutes so they're nice and translucent. A little trick with this recipe, so the stems can be kind of thick. So it is good to, if you're doing a saute or something like what I'm doing now, is to cook the stems first. That way it can get a little bit softer, because as we know, the leaves will just melt into the soup. So if you don't want that crunchy stem, you can saute it ahead of time. So I'll add the stems that I cut before class, but a couple ways that you can get rid of the stem or separate the stem from the leaf. You can fold the leaf like that, and then just run your knife down the stem. Or you can take the leaf, just lay it flat, and same thing, just run your knife down and cut that stem out. So let me go ahead and chop these up so I can throw them in with the onion. And going back to the tears, there is just, we've done a lot of research. There's just no way to avoid those tears besides getting an onion that's not very strong. But if anyone thinks that their trick works, let us know. Now, because I'm using the red stems, the onions will turn a little bit of pink. How much chard? So 1 bunch of chard, the recipe says 12 ounces, but 1 bunch will be just fine. So for the leaves, just a rough chop. So I cut them into strips because, you know, you think about when you're eating it, how much you want your bite full to be, or if you want the leaves hanging out of your mouth. So I try to chop them fairly small. So then I turn it and I give it another chop. So the leaves are like, oh, can you see that? There we go, like that big. Before class, of course, I cut most of the chard. So I'll put it aside because we're not quite ready for it yet. All right, I'm just going to give that another minute. In the meantime, here is my bowl of lentils. I cooked them before class. They typically take about 30 minutes. So lentils can be a little bit on the unflavorful side, for lack of better words. So you need to put a little bit of effort into flavoring them. So you can cook them in water. That's fine. If you do, maybe throw a bay leaf in, some herbs and spices, which of course are going to boost that nutritional value. I usually cook it in broth. So I've cooked this in vegetable broth. I just used 4 cups. If you find that your lentils still aren't cooked, they should be nice and soft that you can smush them between your fingers. If you find that the broth has absorbed and your lentils are not done yet, just add more water and finish cooking them. You don't have to open up another box or can of broth. So I am using brown lentils. So brown or green lentils are a little bit heartier, so they're not going to break down as much. Red or orange or yellow lentils, they do break down and they get a little mushy. And I hate to say mushy like that's bad, but they are softer. So they're good for your creamier soups. I like to use the brown lentils because the chard is such a hearty leaf. So that's why I'm using brown. So these are cooked. I'm setting this aside. And Sue, I think I saw a question come through.
Yep, Sally wanted to know if do you use a bag?
Yes. So
Thinking about the whole amount, I guess.
I used dry lentils, but I only used 1 cup. And I always give my lentils a good rinse. Sometimes there's some stones that can get stuck in there. Okay, so my onions are nice and translucent. The stems are starting to break down a little bit. Now I'm going to add some spices. The recipe calls for cumin. I am also adding paprika. If you're not a fan of cumin, you can use paprika, coriander, garam masala, chili powder. So use this opportunity to really flavor your lentils. You know, we have so many spices in our cabinet, break them out. All right, so I'm going to add these in with the onions and just give it a good mix.
And Michelle, does your Swiss chard, like I know there's rainbow chard, there's so many different types of Swiss chard. Is there a different flavor profile? Is some of them not as bitter as others, or is it basically all about the same?
They are basically all about the same. In taste, of course, the different colors, as we always talk about, you know, the red there represents a whole host of antioxidants. So, you know, the white ones might have a different nutrient profile, but all in all, it pretty much tastes the same. So I brought my pot of lentils back over, and I'm going to add my stem and onion mix to the pot. Next step is to add all these beautiful chard leaves. And that is it. I'm going to give it a nice stir. Obviously, it'll take a few minutes to soften. So I am going to hand it over to Aubrey, right? I'm passing it off to Aubrey.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll come back. I'll show you the finished product. And Aubrey, I think you're using a spatula, right?
I am using a spatula. It'd be really helpful if I could borrow one.
Yes, absolutely. Right here.
All right. I got it.
Very good.
I've got the spatula, everybody. All right. Well, I am moving forward with a different dark leafy green. I will be using kale, and we'll be using 2 different types of kale today. In my recipe, we're going to be using Tuscan kale. You may also see it at the store as lacinato kale. 2 different terms, both mean the same thing. We have this beautiful, Erin pointed perfectly, a bouquet of Tuscan kale here in the front. And I wanted to leave it like that to explain a tactic that I did to also help you guys with food waste. Again, it is National Nutrition Month. We're talking about beyond the plate. So thinking about food waste is important too, because we all need to stretch our food dollars. And so this kale was in our CSA box yesterday, and it was kind of warm in our office yesterday. And so the kale was looking very sad by the end of the day when I got home, and it was pretty wilted, really just kind of crumpled up. And so what I did is I took the bunch of kale and I just sliced the bottoms of all of them off. So I really just went in one firm motion across the bottom to capture all of them. And I stuck it in a cup of cold water, and then I put it in the fridge. I put this in a cup of cold water in the fridge at maybe 3:30 this afternoon. Now it's about 5:15 Eastern time. So it really doesn't take very much time at all. the coldness of the fridge can sometimes help, but that's just one tactic to employ, especially so you don't waste it. You can also use it for something like a broth, if it's past its time and you want to put it in the freezer to use for a vegetable broth later, it'll help to just add some additional flavor. But one fun way to use it, because I know that sometimes we don't always get to greens before they've reached their time that they're starting to wilt. So that's just a tactic you can use. So to begin, I have a Dutch oven on top of the stove. I'm going to start heating that up. I'm going to heat it over about medium heat. So I've got that over medium heat. We're going to let it warm up. If you have a saucepan or another pot, we just want something with a lid, ideally, for this. We are going to be making Italian Tuscan kale. So it's got this beautiful, almost tomatoey sauce on it. Not necessarily like marinara, but these tomatoes we're going to cook with it are going to start to break down. Also, let me mention that all of the recipes we're cooking today, all of them are available on our blog. So you'll have access to all of these. Don't feel like you have to frantically take notes for any of them. To start out, to make this kind of tomatoey base, I'm going to just mince a little bit of garlic. So I have here a garlic press. I like to use this, especially just because it's a little bit easier than chopping up garlic. I will say the thing that is not easier about it is cleaning it than chopping up garlic itself. So you can see here, now we have all of the garlic here on the end. I usually will just take my knife, kind of run it across to get the garlic off. And then you take out the skins as well. You put the garlic clove in whole, so you don't need to peel it or anything. Just a little bit of a time saver, especially if, you need to make it into a fine mince. I can fit the last 2 cloves in. You need 3 in total. So I'm going to go ahead and squish that, mince it. All right. And then I'll slide that off the end. So what we're going to do is we are going to saute this in the Dutch oven for just about 1 or 2 minutes until it becomes fragrant. So we want to be able to really smell that garlicky scent. And let me rinse my fingers or else my hands will smell like that garlicky scent forever. So we're going to put it in the Dutch oven with a little bit of oil. So let me heat up some oil. And this is just olive oil. The recipe calls for about 2 tablespoons. And so I am going to take my garlic and I'm going to put it in with the olive oil. And then I have my spatula that Michelle so graciously handed me. And I'm just going to let it saute, again, just a minute or 2, nothing crazy. While that is sauteing, what I'll do is I'll show you, I have here some cherry tomatoes. You could use grape tomatoes. You could use regular tomatoes, beefsteak or Roma tomatoes, whatever you have available on hand. You need about a cup and chopped into small pieces. So cherry tomatoes are helpful because I feel like you could just chop them in half, makes it really easy. So I just used a small clamshell. Again, thinking about things like reducing food waste, I knew I probably wouldn't get to the rest of the cherry tomatoes. And so I figured, why not chop them all up and put them in? I'm all about flexibility in a recipe. I think it is so, so important. And especially with any of these recipes we're cooking today, if you don't like a particular ingredient, if you don't love tomatoes, you don't love lemon that we're going to be using, you could certainly use something different. You could always make substitutions. All right, so I'm going to put in my cherry tomatoes. Make sure we get all of them out. And I'm going to mix it up with the garlic. And what we want is we want these to start to soften a little bit. So we're going to give them about 3 to 5 minutes, but don't worry. We've got some stuff to do in the meantime. I'm going to turn the volume down, or I'm going to turn the heat down just a little bit so there's not as much background volume. And so I'll mix those up and we'll get ready for the kale. The kale will be the next thing that we're going to add, but let me pull this kale in front first. Again, show you the beauty. Before we chop it, we do need to put a little lemon in with our tomato as well. So let me chop my lemon, and I'm going to juice just half of it for the time being. And I love this little juicer because it helps to not get any of the seeds or the pulp in there, but it really gets all of that lemon juice out. So I'm trying to use as much as I can. And so I'm going to take this lemon juice, put it in with my tomatoes. We'll help them kind of break down a little bit. On the lemon juice aspect of it, sometimes I think a criticism of the dark leafy greens can be that they're just a little bit bitter. They have a bitter flavor. Mixing them with an acid, even with some fats like olive oils, like we're doing today, acids like lemon and tomato, really, really helps to cut down on that bitterness. So something just to keep in mind, especially if you are not a fan of dark leafy greens due to the bitter nature. All right, we'll keep those cooking on medium low while we chop up the kale. So with the kale, it's going to be very easy. So I'm going to take the entire bunch out. I've already rinsed it off and cleaned it. I'll dump out that water. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chiffonade slice them. So traditionally, if you've got a really large leafed item, you can roll it to help out. These Tuscan kale leaves, they're on the smaller side. You can see they're not huge like that chard we just saw. And so I am going to, I'll do half a bunch at a time. I'm going to just take it and slice it horizontally through to get some strip size pieces of this Tuscan kale. And this recipe, I think, really could be flexible if you have curly kale, if you have Swiss chard, whatever you have available to you. As you can see, I'm also chopping down to the stems. What we're going to do for this recipe is we're going to braise the kale, meaning we're going to give it a quick little flash saute, and then we're going to cook it with a liquid to let it soften up. And since we're cooking it with a liquid to let it soften up, that really helps to get the stems nice and soft. So I'm going to put those all in here. If you perhaps wanted to cut the stems off, you could. I would say save the stems like I was talking about with the composting. Save the stems so that you could use for a broth. Save the stems so that you could put them in a compost. Definitely don't toss them. They've got a lot of really great uses. All right. And if you can't see, I'm throwing kale all over the kitchen.
You're turning that volume up, Aubrey.
I am. All right. So I've got the last bit of the kale here. Before we go ahead and put it in the pan, I'll just check and see that the tomatoes are kind of stewed down, cooking down so that they started to soften a bit. All right. Perfect. So the tomatoes are starting to lose a little bit of the color. They're still red. You can kind of see the color leaching out a little bit, which I'll show you all at the end, what it all looks like together. I'm going to put just a little bit of salt and pepper on here, add a little extra flavor. I'm not going to put too much in. I like to add some in to help out at the beginning, but I like to season at the end to really just know what the whole flavor profile is. So there with my salt, there's my pepper. All right. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and put all of my kale in. So here's my bowl, the first bowl. And then I will transfer all of this to the bowl again. And we'll move all of that into the pot. And then I'm just going to give it a little stir, just so that all of it is covered with some of the juices from the tomato, with some of the lemon juice. We want to make sure that all of it is getting touched by all of this delicious flavor. All right, and I can already see some of the kale, as you heat it up and cook it and saute it, it starts to wilt a little bit, which is good. We want it to wilt, we want it to cook down. you'll see by the end, if you have ever cooked greens before, they really shrink down. So they become much smaller. All right, so I mixed it all up. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of broth. You could use whatever broth you would like. I'm using vegetable broth, which I have here. I have in here 1/2 cup. So the next steps that I'm going to take is I'm going to put in a 1/4 cup now. I'm going to put the lid on and let it braise, again, cook with the liquid and soften for about 15 minutes. So we'll circle back to see what it looks like way at the end. But so that you guys know, in the meantime, is halfway through the cooking, I'm going to check and see if there's any liquid left. If all of the liquid has evaporated or absorbed into that kale, then I'm just going to put in the other half of my broth. Same thing that Michelle said. If for some reason, you use half your broth and you put more in and it's still getting really dry, just go ahead and put in some water. If you have some leftover broth in the container, you could use that too. You want it to be a little bit saucy so that it's kind of coated while it's cooking. So I'm going to go ahead and put half of this in. And then I'm just going to give it a quick little mix, and then we'll go ahead and we will put the lid on. While I'm mixing this up before I put the lid on, let me ask any questions on our Italian Tuscan kale that I can answer for anybody.
I do not see any that are coming in. I think we're all mesmerized. Yeah.
Well, perfect. Well, let me go ahead. I'll put this lid on, and then I will be passing you over to Erin, who is going to cook a different type of kale. So, Erin, I think that you might also need a spatula. Is that correct?
I do, because I'm using a baking sheet. So if you could just hand me a spatula, that would be great. Yep. Did
you get that?
Yep. Got it. Thank you.
Of course.
Excellent. Fabulous. So
what a magic show you have going on. What a magic show.
Talented here.
And it changed color too. Like, you guys are killing it.
Yeah. Crazy.
I love it. So I frankly am super excited about my greens that I'm making, because this is such a delicious snack. I was telling everyone before that my kale chips barely made it to the virtual hangout, because I did whip up a little bit before and they're just so good. So today I am utilizing curly leaf kale. So you can see it has the larger, although we've definitely seen much larger than this, but it has these curly edges. And you could certainly use this type of green in any of the methods that we are highlighting this evening. Curly leaf kale does tend to be the variety that is a little bit more bitter forward. So turning this into a crunchy snack with your favorite seasoning blend is a great way to counteract that flavor profile, if that isn't something that is preferable to you. And in addition, this is also a great way to use a large serving of kale. So if you are looking to use up a lot, or you got a large bunch in your CSA box, this is a really quick and easy way to have a healthy snack that's crunchy. I like the little bit of saltiness that you get with it. So really, really easy. It's super kid friendly as well. So I always recommend to have the kiddos in the kitchen with you. So what you'll need for kale chips, really simple. My oven is already preheated. I have it 350 degrees. You will need a baking sheet. So you could use a non-stick baking sheet, or you could just put a piece of parchment paper on top, which is fine. I have my salad spinner here, and it's preferable if you have one, because we want to make sure that before we dress our kale chips to go to on our baking sheet, they are very, very dry. So a salad spinner is one of those kitchen tools that is a really easy way to dry off your greens or herbs or whatever you're using. So we'll use that. I will be using a little bit of a mixing bowl and then your favorite seasoning. So let's get started. So I will be very similar to the methods that Michelle was using. You could certainly use a knife, and you'll want to remove the leaves from the stem here, because the stem is quite firm. So for me, I mean, you don't have to be as precise. you can just pull them away from the stem. Now, National Nutrition Month, Beyond the Table. So we're certainly talking about reducing food waste. And as Aubrey said, you know, don't throw these stems away. And one of the ways that I love to save and utilize my leftovers is in my stock bag. So what I will do is all of your extras, what you would typically maybe throw in the trash can, just keep in a freezer safe bag and keep it in your freezer, and then add to it with your leftover onion peels, you know, your carrot peels, garlic, the stems of all your greens, and then use them to make your own stock or to flavor stock, whether it's chicken, whether it's a veggie stock. But this is a great way to use up the scraps. So I will set this aside. And so before you use any green, we want to clean it, right? So this came in my CSA box yesterday. I'm just adding a little bit of water to it. And I'll show you how I like to clean my greens. So it doesn't take much. Even if your greens look clean, I do recommend that you give them a wash anyway, because it can be pretty scary what comes off of them. So we add a little bit of cold water. We'll give this a little bit of a, oh no, we won't. We'll let it soak. Hold on, I have to drain it first. I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm so
taking a little
excited for my
shower.
kale chips. Oh my gosh, I know, thankfully. So your salad spinner, you know, comes with this inner canister. So you can remove your leaves, and then we'll dump out the water. Once we know that it's been draining a little bit, here we go. And then we'll spin. So once it's drained of water, and I definitely made a mess over here, but such is life. Now we'll spin. Okay.
Erin, I'm ordering my salad spinner. It is such a key
It is such a key.
household kitchen.
I love it. And
what else can you use a salad? Yeah, which leads to
So
that question.
Great question, Amy. A lot.
Great question.
So it has this inner canister, which I find really helpful. So first, you see like all that excess water that came out, which was just sitting on the leaves. So what else I like to use it for is cleaning my berries. So what I'll typically do, I'm going to dump out my greens onto a clean kitchen towel, because like I said early on, we want our greens to be really dry. So although I love my salad spinner, I just want to give them a little bit more attention to make sure all the water came off. So I just like to dab them a little bit. So what I'll do with my salad spinner, you don't necessarily need the lid, but what I'll do is I'll put my berries, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, and I like to clean them in a solution of water and white vinegar. So I'll put them in here. I'll make my solution. I'll zhuzh them around a little bit, and I'll let them sit for 8 to 10 minutes. And then I pull my canister out and dump out the water, and I give them a rinse, and now my berries are clean. You could do that with any kind of fruit. You could clean any kind of green, any of your herbs. So if you have an herb garden, you can use this as a cleaner for that as well. Salad spinners come in different sizes. So this is a pretty large size, but they make ones that are smaller if you know that you just use a lot of fresh herbs. So there's a lot of things that you can do with it, and especially for your leafy greens and making sure that they get really dry. It's just one of those really friendly tools. So I love it. And they're not expensive. They're really cheap. You can get them on Amazon. Yeah, there's so many good things to it. So once I know that my leaves are really dry, because one of the ways that you can assure yourself that you'll get nice, crispy chips is making sure that you get all of the water. So even if you had a few more minutes and you just wanted to sort of leave this out in the air to dry off, you could do that. So once they're completely dry, you just want to move through and make sure that they are just sort of broken up into medium to small pieces. So once we bake them, they will shrink. So you don't have to make them really small, but we don't want them to be a long strip. So once they're, pretty good size, we'll put them, I like to put them in a little bowl. Yep, go ahead, Sue.
Can you tell us that Karen was just asking about the ratio of vinegar to water to clean the fruit?
It's typically a 1-to-3 ratio or a 1-to-4 ratio. I've seen both. So I would do 1 cup, probably for this, I would do 1-to-4. So 1 cup of white distilled vinegar and either 3 or 4 cups of water. And then I let them sit in that for 8 to 10 minutes to clean. I kind of give them a zhuzh periodically. They do not taste like vinegar, but it helps to sort of clean that surface. I also recommend cleaning your produce pretty close, especially your berries, pretty close to when you are going to use them. So if they're strawberries or blueberries, I'll store them properly, but I'll give them a good cleaning when I know that I'm ready to use them just for freshness. Okay, so we have our mixing bowl. So let's dress our kale chips, which dressing and seasonings is the fun part of this recipe. I'm going pretty simple. With your seasoning blends, and we have a really great blog on our website. That mentions different seasoning blends, which I'll give you some ideas. But you're going to want to use a very little bit of oil so that the seasonings can kind of hang on the leaves. Now, again, similar to in a mason jar after cleaning, you can certainly do that as well to store them. But for dressing, similar to we wanted our leaves to be as dry as possible from when we cleaned them, we don't want to overload our kale leaves with oil because making them soppy will prevent them from getting nice and crispy. So minimal is the key word in using it. So for this little bit of kale, I'm using a teaspoon of olive oil. So I really, sometimes I can be heavy-handed. So that's why I have my little teaspoon here.
I'm so glad you said that, Erin, because it is a mistake. I know I made it because then the chips are not crispy. And I am heavy-handed with the olive oil. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is one of those few where I really want to be precise. If I was using a larger batch, you could go up as much as a tablespoon, but err on the side of less is more. And then from here, simple way, a Parmesan type seasoning is a basic and really delicious way to enjoy them. So the first thing that I'm adding is some salt. So you can use some coarse salt. I'm actually using some flaked sea salt tonight because I like that it's a slightly larger size. It gets a really great crunch. So I'm adding some sea salt flakes. And you could use some fresh Parmesan. I am going to be using some nutritional yeast. So this gives a little bit of that cheesy, umami, savory flavor. So I will just sprinkle a little bit of this on there. And then this is why I like to use a bowl so that I can use my hands to ensure everything gets well coated. So, you don't have some leaves that are more well-dressed or more oil than others, and we can really manipulate them. Other seasoning blends that you could use include a garlic seasoning blend with some garlic powder and some sea salt. There's a really delicious blend of smoked paprika and some sesame seeds, which add a really nice crunch. You could do a maple chipotle with a little bit of olive oil, some maple syrup, balsamic vinegar, and chipotle seasoning and sea salt. Now, because you're adding another liquid like balsamic vinegar, I'd go very light on the oil, very, very light. But that would be really flavorful as well. So lots of great ideas on the blog. Okay, now that my leaves are very well dressed, we'll place them on the baking sheet. You want to give your chips kale. You want to give your chips plenty of room to breathe. So it's okay if there's a little bit of crowding on your baking sheet, no big deal because they will shrink, but you don't want to have like a huge mound on top so that the air can't circulate very well. So once they're nicely spread out, we will bake these. So 350, anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes in your oven. You want to just give them a peek, and when the edges start to get brown, they're done. So let me put these in the oven and then I'll show you what they look like when they come out. Now, once they start baking in the oven, do not be alarmed if they kind of stink up your kitchen a little bit. Those cruciferous vegetables, while healthy, they're known for their sulfurous compounds, which come with a particular lovely smell. So don't be alarmed. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just, you know, the nature of the beast with these group of vegetables, but we love them. So when you are take them out of the oven, so keep checking on them probably around 12 or 13 minutes. But when you take them out, you get this slightly brown, fully crispy, crunchy, delicious, salty snack. And you don't get any of the bitterness. I'm getting a little bit of saltiness. They have an absolutely crunchy, beautiful, light texture. They are the healthiest snack. Your kids will love them. They're best served right away or shortly thereafter. So, you know, so kind of plan, but as you can see, they take really no time to put together. So these are my really delicious, flavorful kale chips that I will just continue to snack on for the rest of our virtual hangout, but you will love them. Check out our blog for more seasoning blends and ways that you can experiment with your kale chips at home. And happy snacking. Can you only use curly leaf? Oh no, great question. So you could use a Tuscan kale leaf like Aubrey was using. I imagine you can also use any kind of chard as well, because you're just sort of baking and dehydrating the leafy greens. So if you wanted to experiment with the green chard that Catherine will be using, or the red chard or rainbow chard that Michelle was using for those kind of chips, you could do that as well. Certainly you can use the Tuscan kale with sort of a flatter leaf and a little mixture of both. And you would follow the same steps, so you don't have to cook it any more or less, you know, and seasoning would be the same as well. But yeah, certainly experiment with different types of kales or greens to make your own chips at home.
I love that.
Wonderful.
Well, hopefully, Erin, you can take a couple of those in your carry-on bag and bring them with you so I can have some. Or they're just not going to be good, are they? They won't last. You're going to have to eat them all.
They may. Right? I was thinking more in line that they might not make it to the airport tomorrow.
That's what I'm thinking too. That's what I'm thinking.
They might not make. They might be my snack as I finish packing. So, nice. So that is my National Nutrition Month healthy little snack for the evening. And now I would like to pass the kitchen utensil to Catherine, who will be whipping up a pesto and I think she needs a spoon for it. So Catherine, let me hand you a spoon over here so that you can make
I think I got it. You can drop it. You can drop it. Got it. I got it right here.
Excellent.
Thank you, Erin. You always know what I need. You've definitely done pesto before. I can tell, especially with all that kale. So hi, today I will be doing a Swiss chard and pecan pesto. So for that, I will be using the same leafy green that Michelle was using. I will be using a Swiss chard, and this one is called Ruby Red because it has that red in the middle and the veins, and it's a very bright color. So you guys can tell that it has a lot of nutrients and antioxidants, vitamins, vitamin K, vitamin A, vitamin C. So that is just to go how versatile this leafy green can be, right? So Michelle is making a soup, and then I'll be making a pesto with it. And similar to what everyone's been saying, so it doesn't really matter. It could be this, the red one, it could be the green one, it could be the rainbow one. They're all going to be the same, especially because we're seasoning, we're adding a lot of different things. So that's what's going to take up most of the flavor. So a lot of times leafy greens get a bad rep because of their bitterness. Some other people like it and they can eat it raw. So you can eat the stem and the leaves of any leafy green. But if we cook them, then that takes away some of the bitterness. And that's what we're going to start off doing today. So right here, I just simply washed and chopped about 10 leaves of the Swiss chard, and I have them right here. And I also have 4 cloves of garlic. While everyone else was cooking, I was just setting up a little bit of olive oil, about 2 tablespoons over medium heat. And then I'm just going to toss this in there. And I'm going to move it a little bit. So we're going to your phone. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, we got you.
Good. Perfect. Good. All right. So we're just gonna move it around a little bit. And so we're gonna leave it for about 3 to 5 minutes. And then we're gonna see how the volume is just gonna reduce. And it's as you cook it, you see the brightness of the colors just pop up. In the meantime, we're gonna do the rest of the pesto. So right here, I have a small food processor. And I also have half a cup of extra virgin olive oil. I have a cup of fresh basil leaves. I have about 3 ounces of Parmesan cheese, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and a cup of pecans. I also have a teaspoon of salt, but we can add it towards the end to kind of see if we need to adjust or if we even need it. I typically eat a diet very low on salt since I was little because my grandma used to have hypertension. So that's all I know, just low sodium. So we're gonna start just putting everything together in here. I'm gonna start off with the basil. So typically a pesto just has basil, but since we're trying to find different and creative ways to include more leafy greens because they have different vitamins and minerals, and we know that we should incorporate them, but in ways that they're tasty, that's why we're including the leafy green. And we can also do it with kale. We can do it with the Tuscan kale, with the curly kale. We could do it with arugula. And I've even seen, I'm guilty, I've bought it. I love olives, and they have, I think it's Trader Joe's where I got it. They have this pesto where they add green olives, and it just gives it a different kick. So if you want to add olives to this, I would say that's a good idea. And then now I'm just gonna add the rest of the olive oil. I'm gonna leave a little bit just in case if I need it, because after this I'm gonna add the Swiss chard that's cooking over there. Before I turn this on, I'm gonna check to see how that's going. Toss it around a little bit. And this basically turned into maybe a cup or a cup and a half, so the volume is just very small. So if you guys have a lot of Swiss chards laying around, this would also be a really good recipe or a way to use it. All right, so that's going good. So I'm going to turn this on. I'm just gonna pulse it for a little bit. Sorry if it gets loud. And then I'm just gonna move it so that all of the parts that came into the walls just blend a little bit. Oh my God, this smells amazing. You guys are a basil fan like me. I even have my plant back there. I never just buy basil. I'm not good with plants, but I never just buy the little ones. I just buy the plant because I know that it's a similar price and you can get so much more. And there's so many different ways to use it. So it's just another way of getting some more greens. Okay, so let's try this again. We're good. See how that's going. Looks already like regular pesto. Right now, yeah. Now that this is, yep, this is ready. And we don't really have to mince or do any much prep just because everything is going to be blended in that food processor. So that's why even I left the garlic cloves just as they were. So see, look at the dark green color. It even looks black on the camera, but this is very dark. So I'm just gonna add what I have, what came out from all of those leaves in here. Perfect. And we're gonna process it again. Let's add the rest of the olive oil, some healthy fats in there.
So Catherine, does the profile of the Swiss chard when you just do a little saute just come out better, in this basil pesto as far as not putting it in raw?
Yeah, so because it takes that bitterness away, and then it makes it easier to process. So it's going to be smoother. And we're also sauteing it with the garlic, so that's going to give it a little boost for the flavor.
You got a friend there in the corner.
Yeah, I have my. He thinks this is a restaurant for him. He's waiting for the pasta.
Oh yeah,
So,
he's ready.
Yeah. So for pesto, you can toss it with like a warm pasta. It could be with chicken. You can also use it as a spread on with maybe some garlic bread. You can use it for like a bowl. Even with a salad, I would use it like instead of a dressing, and then maybe add a little bit more of olive oil to make it more runny and so that it mixes a little bit better. I don't know if you guys are hearing anything, but yeah.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. This is almost ready. Yes, this looks beautiful. And I will be eating this later with pasta. So I'm gonna just put it in this little container that I have. The glass
Catherine, how long
container.
could you keep that in the fridge? Because I feel
Yeah,
like
so
it's such a good ready, make it for the week and pull it out when you need it.
Yeah, so I would say 3 to 5 days on the fridge, especially because there is some Parmesan in here. However, if you want to keep it for longer, if you're making a big batch, you can always freeze it, and then there would be good for like 2 to 3 months. And then just maybe doing little containers like these. This is about an ounce, so you can freeze this and then just use it for a couple recipes. So I'll show you guys. There we go.
So beautiful. Looks like ice
Yeah.
cream. It's like sorbet.
Yeah, maybe some pistachio ice cream. And then, so I would just close it and then save it as is, or use it for any recipe. I would say just spread pesto on anything.
Wow.
And then, and then now
we're gonna
we're gonna go back to Michelle. We are gonna taste that soup, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna need a ladle to serve that.
Yeah.
And I got you. All right, Michelle, here you go. Here you go, all the way from Florida. Might take a minute.
Look at that magic.
That was great.
Stainless.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Thank you, Catherine. So yes, my soup is finished. A couple things. I think the reoccurring theme with the kale and the chard is that, the bitterness or the texture or the density of the leaves, when you cook them, that bitterness might go away, or once you cook them, the bitterness goes away and then it gets softer. So we hope that you're not afraid of these wonderful leafy greens. So my soup is done. I don't know if you noticed, I was adding a little bit of water because I had made the lentils earlier. So some of the broth was soaked up. So I added a little bit of water just so it could have some more broth. So if you do that, just give it a taste and you can add more spices. But here is the finished product. And you see let me get closer here. Hopefully you can see that. All the beautiful colors of the red stem, the green leaves, and the red stem kind of colored the vegetable broth as well. So it's this beautiful color. And to finish it off, you can just give it a squeeze of lemon. And there you have it. Enjoy.
Amazing.
And I think we're going to
Well,
go back to Aubrey. I don't have anything
Yeah.
else left to pass. So
Okay.
you're on your own.
Yes, I just wanted to also finish up and show everybody my completed Italian Tuscan kale. So I did halfway through add the rest of the broth. There was still a little bit of liquid in there, but I just knew that I wanted to make sure it was cooking up and nice and saucy. So I've got it here in my Dutch oven. And you can also see I have it beautifully plated up here. What you can do, because I know I had a pretty large lemon, so I only used half of it to put into the Tuscan kale when I was making it. What you can do is kind of like Michelle did. You can finish it off with a little bit of a squeeze of lemon. If you have some taste changes, again, this is the time to kind of go in and decide, do I need to add acid? Do I need to add salt or sweet? It's really flexible and a really great side dish. Maybe you have your Tuscan kale and then you have some pesto pasta with it. And otherwise, those are all of our recipes. And we hope that we were able to showcase just the versatility of something that's so nutrient dense that I think oftentimes can be intimidating or nerve-wracking. And so we love to be able to show you how it can be fun and easy in the kitchen. And we're really glad that all of you tuned in today so that you could see all of these delicious recipes and celebrate National Nutrition Month and National Registered Dietitian Day with us. So thank you all for coming.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I love these segments. Super fun.
Mm-hmm. I love the idea, Catherine, of cooking your greens too for pesto. I love that idea.
Yeah.
I've never done that. I've never
Me
done
neither.
that. I thought so too, Erin. I also like the finishing with the lemon. Like I do that. I don't know if I just do it instinctively. I think it just brightens so many foods, the lemon juice. But I love that you guys added it to the kale a couple of times, and soups. Like you don't think to put lemon in soup at the end, and it is so good. It's so good. So thank you for sharing that. All right, another very fabulous virtual hangout with our mighty nutrition team. Thank you all for coming. Oh, there we go. I don't know how you do that, Erin. You are just on fire. That girl is on fire, right?
Fireworks, literally.
Fireworks. I know. I don't know how you do that, but yeah, it's like a little Harry Potter magic trick.
Right.
Yeah, well, thank you all for joining. Our dietitian team. I mean, how lucky are we, right? That we have this dynamic foursome that can really bring so much wealth of knowledge to the kitchen and make us all feel like, we are stars, literally stars in the kitchen. A couple reminders, right? We also want to thank our education sponsors. They are extraordinary. And we have West and Merck leading the way there with our presenting sponsors, with Daiichi Sankyo and GSK and Lilly as our supporting sponsors. And then a couple reminders, right? Like don't miss out. We have a Her Speaker series coming up on March the 21st, 5 p.m. We'll be joined with Dr. Arejo, and that's the president of Society of Integrative Oncology. That should be a really good segment, aligned so beautifully with everything we do here at Unite for Her. And then we have an Ask the Experts coming up Thursday the 28th at 1 p.m. And we get to see this fabulous team once again and just rapid fire all those nutrition questions, right? I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen, isn't it AD, right? AD, or is it Vogue? One of them does like a rapid fire 70 questions on a celebrity. That's what I feel like we should do with you guys. Rapid fire 70 questions. Can we do it?
I will try.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, super fun. All right, everybody. Well, thank you all. Have a wonderful evening. And thank you for joining us at Unite for Her at this virtual hangout. We appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
I feel like we should take a poll of how many people would buy those shirts if we put the Unite for Her logo on it. I love them. I feel like you should go eat more plants and then Unite for Her underneath.
Right. The little logo.
Do that.
Love it.
That can be for Planciary next year. We can. I don't think. The place I bought is
plants.
Like a
They're
small...
just words, right? They're just words,
right? Anybody can use them. So.
Did you see Karen's comment in the chat. She said, I love how the dietitians, their kitchens aren't cluttered. And I felt like said, yeah, it's all the clutter is like
It's in the back.
Another
love
little
Karen.
magic trick. for
I love
sure.
her. Yeah.
I know. It's so funny. Yeah. Yeah. All the work behind the scenes, a little work and magic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good deal. All right, Aaron, stop eating those chips. They got to make it on the airplane.
Oh my gosh, they're never going to make it. So they're so good. Oh my gosh. I was
Don't
trying
you
not
have
to eat the
another
big
batch in the
pieces.
oven? Don't you have another
I
batch
took
in
them
the
out.
oven?
I took them out.
She's already on the new batch. She's
They're so good.
Erin is joining me in San Diego for the Society for Gynecological Oncology conference, and she is going to be speaking at the Women's Foundation for Women's Cancer on nutrition. So that's on Friday. So that's where Erin's going to be. Yeah. Very good. I got the banner, easy peasy, Erin. Got
Great.
that baby on the airplane, no problem.
Great. Excellent. We'll take it home for you. Good.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, wasn't a problem. All right. Thank you all. It was fantastic.
Thank you.